The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. Henry David Thoreau made this remark over 150 years ago. However, it is an observation that still rings true today. Often this desperation is the product of nagging feelings that we are wasting our life, accompanied by the frustration that despite our desire to make something of ourselves, the years pass by and nothing seems to change. Phillips Brooks commented that those in this predicament feel the thing they ought to be beating beneath the thing they are. If we ignore these feelings for too long, then we will remain forever haunted by what might have been. In this video, we will explore how we can escape from a life of quiet desperation and transform ourselves in a manner more conducive to a fulfilling existence. "We cannot change anything unless we accept it," wrote Carl Jung. The first step, therefore, is to acknowledge that a change in our way of life is needed. An easy way to determine how necessary it is for us to change is to take note of how often we are afflicted by feelings of regret, guilt, anxiety, or depression. Jung believed that in the overwhelming majority of cases, neurotic symptoms such as these are a direct result of an inadequate approach to life and act as signals communicating the necessity of change. It seemed to Jung, wrote Yolanda Jacoby in her book The Way of Individuation, that the meaning of neurotic sufferings might consist in their compelling a man to come to terms with the foundation of his being and with the world, and thereby to gain a better knowledge of his limits and possibilities. Jung thus puts the emphasis on the prospective aspect, giving neurosis a positive meaning and not regarding it only as a burdensome illness. According to him, it can even act as a stimulus in the struggle for the development of the personality and be, paradoxically, a curative factor. When troubled by these negative emotional states, however, most people choose to take the easy road. Instead of changing their behaviors, they try to dull their feelings or flee from them if possible. They take drugs, drink, or distract themselves by pursuing mindless pleasures. In the long run, this only exacerbates the problem, and Jung offered a warning for those who choose this path. "We may think there is a safe road," wrote Jung, "but that would be the road of death. Then nothing happens any longer. At any rate, not the right things. Anyone who takes the safe road is as good as dead." After accepting that change is needed, the question becomes, what type of change is most conducive to a fulfilling life? In the mid-20th century, the psychologist Abraham Maslow set out to answer this question. Unlike many of his colleagues who devoted most of their time to studying the mentally ill, Maslow decided to do the opposite. He chose to study those who excelled in life, and this led him to an important discovery. The healthiest and most flourishing among us are those who are motivated by trends to self-actualization, which Maslow defined as an ongoing actualization of potentials, capacities, and talents, as fulfillment of a mission, as a fuller knowledge of and acceptance of the person's own intrinsic nature, and as an unceasing trend toward unity. Maslow was so convinced of the importance of self-actualization that he made the following bold pronouncement. "If you plan on being anything less than you are capable of being, you will probably be unhappy all the days of your life." But after years of stagnating, years in which our bad habits and destructive behavioral patterns have solidified, how can we become self-actualizers? A quote of uncertain origins, but often attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson, provides some direction. "Sow a thought and you reap an action. Sow an act and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny." The first step is the thought, and for those of us striving to live more fulfilling lives, this entails the selection of an aim or purpose to our existence. For as Maslow pointed out, self-actualizers are very much defined by a life mission. In making this selection, people sometimes get tripped up into believing that this requires the determination of their true passion. The problem with this approach is that it overlooks the fact that very often our passions follow the development of our skills. Therefore, if you are uncertain of where your passions lie, it is unlikely you will discover them through thought alone. Rather than delaying for too long, it is far better to pick something challenging which sparks your curiosity and not worry about whether it is the perfect choice. With that said, the sowing of the thought, or the selection of a goal, will only be of positive consequence if we reap the actions and build the better habits which ultimately move us forward in the pursuit of our aims. Having something to aim at is important, not so much because of the external rewards achievement of the goal will bring, but rather because of the transformation it forces us to undergo. Pursuing a challenging goal requires us to leave our comfort zone as we develop new skills, cultivate self-discipline, and in the process discover that we are not as helpless as we once thought. The problem for many of us, however, is that we struggle in moving from the sowing of the thought to the reaping of the actions. Often people blame their inability to take productive action on their anxiety, depression, fear, or a lack of confidence in their abilities. Before taking the actions necessary to pursue their aims, such people reason, perhaps they must first rid themselves of their negative emotions. This, however, is an approach often doomed to fail. These negative emotional states are, by and large, the result of faulty behavioral patterns and the avoidance of facing up to our fears and courageously taking on the challenges in our lives that would lead to personal growth. Meditation and introspection alone will never cure us of these feelings. Rather, we must learn that we can take purposeful action even when we are feeling anxious, depressed, or fearful. The importance of purposeful action as a cure for our troubled emotions is foundational to Morita therapy, a Japanese school of psychotherapeutic thought. As David Reynolds, a practitioner of the school, explains, realign your life toward getting done what reality sends that needs doing. In other words, we advise you to focus more on purposeful behavior. Let the feelings take care of themselves. What I think you will find is that when you get good at doing what needs doing in your life, the feelings stop giving you such trouble. And even if your feelings become troublesome when you are involved in constructive activity, they remain in perspective. Feelings cease to be the whole show. The ability to act even when we are not feeling up to it is one of the most distinguishing characteristics of self-actualizers. For as Thomas Huxley wrote, perhaps the most valuable result of all education is the ability to make yourself do the thing you have to do, when it ought to be done, whether you like it or not. Furthermore, as Maslow wrote in Toward a Psychology of Being, self-actualizing does not mean a transcendence of all human problems. Conflict, anxiety, frustration, sadness, hurt, and guilt can all be found in healthy human beings. Therefore, it doesn't matter who you are or what stage of life you are at, negative emotions will always present themselves. The question is, do you have the courage to act in the face of these feelings or not? Those who find such courage will live far better lives than those who cower in the face of their fears. For as Emerson wrote, do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain. An effective way to gain the necessary courage to act in the face of your fears is to reflect on the imminence of death. The Stoic philosophers suggested that those who become more aware of just how brief life is will be far more likely to live in the most intense and courageous manner possible, striving to take advantage of each moment. Steve Jobs, who was clearly a man of action, recognized the power of this method. Remembering that I'll be dead soon, he stated, is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. But awareness of our approaching death is a double-edged sword. If we delay too long in instituting the changes required to live a more fulfilling life, and instead of striving to actualize our potential, we fritter away our time, then awareness of our mortality will give rise to nagging and increasingly intense feelings of guilt and regret. We will have chosen the safe road, which Jung called the road of death, and we will spend our remaining days fleeing from the fact that we are wasting our life. In her book, The Way of Individuation, Yolanda Jacoby provides a warning of what can be expected for those who choose this path. Any obstruction of the natural processes of development, or getting stuck on a level unsuited to one's age, takes its revenge, if not immediately, then later at the onset of the second half of life, in the form of serious crises, nervous breakdowns, and all manner of physical and psychic sufferings. Mostly they are accompanied by vague feelings of guilt, by tormenting pangs of conscience, often not understood, in the face of which the individual is helpless. He knows he is not guilty of any bad deed, he has not given way to an illicit impulse, and yet he is plagued by uncertainty, discontent, despair, and above all, anxiety, a constant, indefinable anxiety. And in truth, he must usually be pronounced guilty. His guilt does not lie in the fact that he has a neurosis, but in the fact that, knowing he has one, he does nothing to set about curing it. Yet there is hope for those willing to embrace the difficult path of genuine transformation. The philosopher Seneca understood this when he wrote that every moment allows us to begin again. Each day presents us with an opportunity to shed the patterns that have kept us trapped and to take the first tentative steps toward becoming who we are meant to be. The process of self-actualization is not a destination, but rather a continuous journey of growth and discovery. One of the greatest obstacles we face in this journey is our tendency to compare ourselves with others. Social media has amplified this problem exponentially, creating a constant stream of curated lives against which we measure our own. But this comparison is fundamentally flawed because we are comparing our inner struggles with others' outer appearances. The psychologist Jordan Peterson emphasizes that the only meaningful comparison is with who you were yesterday, not with who someone else is today. This shift in perspective liberates us from the paralyzing effects of envy and inadequacy and allows us to focus on our own path of development. Another significant barrier to self-actualization is our attachment to comfort and predictability. The human brain is wired to seek safety and avoid uncertainty. This evolutionary programming served our ancestors well when physical survival was the primary concern. But in our modern world, this same tendency keeps us trapped in situations that provide security but little fulfillment. The psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, in his research on flow states, discovered that peak experiences occur when we are engaged in activities that challenge us just beyond our current level of ability. This sweet spot between boredom and anxiety is where growth happens, where we discover capabilities we never knew we possessed. The concept of voluntary suffering is central to many philosophical and religious traditions, and it holds particular relevance for those seeking to escape quiet desperation. Voluntary suffering differs from the involuntary suffering we naturally try to avoid. It is the deliberate choice to embrace difficulty in service of a greater purpose. When we voluntarily take on challenges that stretch our capacities, we develop resilience, confidence, and a deeper appreciation for our own strength. The marathon runner voluntarily suffers through months of training and the pain of the race itself, not because they enjoy suffering, but because they understand that this temporary discomfort leads to a profound sense of accomplishment and self-knowledge. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, observed that humans can endure almost any suffering if they can find meaning in it. His experiences led him to develop logotherapy, a form of psychotherapy centered on the search for meaning. Frankl argued that the primary human drive is not pleasure, as Freud suggested, nor power, as Adler proposed, but meaning. Those who can connect their daily actions to a larger sense of purpose find themselves capable of persevering through difficulties that would break others. This is why having a mission or calling is so crucial to escaping quiet desperation. It provides the why that makes the how bearable. The ancient Greeks understood this principle through their concept of eudaimonia, often translated as happiness, but more accurately described as human flourishing. Eudaimonia is not a feeling but a way of being. It is the result of living in accordance with our deepest values and highest potential. Aristotle argued that eudaimonia comes from the practice of virtue, not as moral righteousness, but as excellence of character. When we consistently act in ways that align with our best selves, we experience a profound sense of integrity and wholeness. The modern self-help industry often promises quick fixes and easy solutions, but genuine transformation requires what the psychologist Angela Duckworth calls grit, the combination of passion and perseverance for long-term goals. Grit is what allows some people to continue pursuing their aims long after others have given up and moved on to something easier. It is the ability to view setbacks as temporary rather than permanent and to see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than threats to be avoided. The role of solitude in self-actualization cannot be overstated. In our hyper-connected world, we have lost the art of being alone with ourselves. We fill every quiet moment with stimulation, whether through our phones, social media, or endless entertainment. But it is only in solitude that we can hear the quiet voice of our authentic self, the voice that knows what we truly value and what we are meant to become. Regular periods of solitude allow us to reflect on our progress, to course correct when we have strayed from our path, and to reconnect with the deeper purposes that give our lives meaning. The cultivation of patience is another essential element of lasting transformation. We live in an age of instant gratification where everything is available at the touch of a button. This has conditioned us to expect rapid results from our efforts. But meaningful change operates on a different timeline. Like a tree that grows slowly but develops deep roots, genuine self-actualization requires sustained effort over months and years. The ability to persist when progress seems invisible and to trust that small, consistent actions compound over time. The importance of community and relationships in our journey cannot be ignored. While solitude provides the space for self-reflection, it is through our connections with others that we test and refine our understanding of ourselves. The people we surround ourselves with either support our growth or enable our stagnation. Those committed to escaping quiet desperation must be willing to distance themselves from relationships that pull them back toward their old patterns and to seek out companions who share their commitment to growth and excellence. Finally, we must address the question of legacy. What will remain when we are gone? How will the world be different because we exist? These questions can serve as powerful motivators for change. When we consider that our time is limited, and that our actions have consequences beyond our own immediate experience, we are more likely to choose the difficult path of growth over the easy path of comfort. The knowledge that we are part of something larger than ourselves can provide the strength needed to persevere through the inevitable challenges of transformation. The escape from quiet desperation is not a one-time event, but an ongoing choice. Each day we must decide whether to embrace the discomfort of growth or to retreat into the familiar patterns that keep us small. The path is difficult, but the alternative is far worse. For as Thoreau himself wrote, "I went to the woods to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived." The choice is ours to make.